Welcome to Pod Studio, level up your fluency from trending topics. Today we are going to talk about the ultimate guide to xAI Grok.
Okay, so if you're trying to keep up with the world of AI right now, you definitely know the feeling. It's just information overload. New models, new features, new benchmarks seem to drop like every week. But, few launches have generated quite the same amount of hype as Grok, the conversational AI assistant from xAI. So our mission today is really to cut through all that noise. We want to deliver a proper deep dive into Grok, and we have to tackle the claims head on, right? I mean, Elon Musk set this absolutely astronomical bar. He described Grok as the ultimate AI assistant, capable of transforming how we interact with technology and even helping users discover the answers to life, the universe, everything. That's an audacious promise. So we really need to look past the marketing spin and ask, what does Grok actually do, technically? And importantly, where does it genuinely stack up against the competition?
Right. And just to frame that for you, Grok is positioned as a pretty distinct conversational tool. It's designed for, both serious analytical discussions and also, significantly, for some less serious chats. It's explicitly engineered, to really leverage the X ecosystem. So we're going to spend our time today looking at, I think, three core things. It's real-time data advantage, those new multimodal capabilities, and how its benchmark performance maybe defines a specialized niche in this crowded AI landscape.
Okay. Yeah, let's unpack this, because the sheer speed of iteration here, that feels like the first big clue about xAI's whole strategy. I mean, when you look at the recent timeline, it wasn't just fast, it was frankly breakneck. We saw Grok 1 launch, then Grok 1.5 almost immediately after, and then Grok 1.5 Vision right on its heels, all within about a month in early 2024. That's not just development, that feels like a sprint to market, just constantly bolting on new features.
And what that tells us, I think, is they're really prioritizing rapid feature deployment. But the biggest differentiator they launched with, it wasn't really speed itself, but access. Grok is, deeply integrated with X.
Yeah.
It pulls real-time data from public posts, from headlines. Now, that's fundamentally different from many competing large language models that, they rely on knowledge cutoffs, historical data sets.
Right. So if some major global event happens like this morning, Grok is arguably one of the first conversational AIs that can actually react to it almost immediately.
Precisely. And for the user, the benefit of this real-time access, it goes beyond just, conversational relevance. It lets Grok act as a genuine summarizer of emerging trends, of current events, drawing from that huge fire hose of information that X represents. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
But doesn't this immediate access to X data raise a kind of interesting question about trade-offs? Like, if the speed and relevance are boosted so much by using X, does relying on it so heavily potentially introduce, specific limitations? Or maybe noise compared to models trained on broader, maybe more curated web data?
That's a really critical point to think about, yeah. When an AI draws almost exclusively from a single social media platform, even as huge as X, you are inherently going to be subject to the biases, the specific tone, maybe the rapid-fire nature of information on that platform. So while the data is immediate, it might lack some of the vetting or maybe the broader context that models pulling from more diverse archive sources could provide. It's definitely a strategic choice. Maximize that immediacy, potentially at the cost of, let's say, curated editorial balance.
Okay, that definitely shifts the competitive dynamic. So moving from the speed of data to the type of data, let's dive into the tech behind Grok 1.5 Vision, because that's xAI's big entry into the multimodal AI world. And for you, the listener, just quickly, multimodal basically means the model can process and understand more than just text. It can handle visual inputs, things like diagrams, documents, charts, even photographs, and it integrates that information into its responses.
Yeah, and the key insight here, I think, is where they're applying that capability. They're not just, letting it see pictures. They're actually training it to reason spatially. The ability to translate, say, a visual flowchart or maybe a technical diagram into functional code, that's one of the features xAI is really highlighting.
I've seen that mentioned, almost like a potential killer feature.
Yeah.
But is that capability, writing code from a diagram, is it truly ready for prime time yet? Or is it still maybe more of an aspirational demo?
Well, it's moving quickly from aspirational to genuinely useful, I'd say. But importantly, it really proves the specialization of the model. The real power seems to come in its tested strength in spatial reasoning. We're talking about Grok 1.5V actually outperforming competitors on this new benchmark called real-world QA. And this benchmark specifically tests how well an AI can look at a real-life image and understand the context, the relationships between objects, the spatial positioning within it. Just think about the practical uses there, right? Interpreting complex repair manuals where text and diagrams have to line up perfectly. Or analyzing construction schematics, maybe even optimizing logistics by understanding the layout of a factory floor from, say, drone footage. That kind of specialized real-world visual understanding, that's where Grok 1.5v seems to be carving out a niche that goes beyond just standard text generation.
That is a really compelling distinction, yeah. It feels like xAI is betting on specialized practical utility rather than just trying to achieve overall generalized dominance across the board. Okay, and speaking of distinct approaches, let's shift gears a bit. From the technical side, maybe the unconventional tech, to the personality, because Grok is designed to be, well, maybe a little less polite.
Indeed, that's definitely part of the brand. Must explicitly design Grok to have, and I quote, a bit of wit and a rebellious streak. And this isn't just, marketing fluff. It seems to be baked into how it functions.
Right, and we see that personality reflected in how it handles sensitive topics, or sometimes just silly ones that other, maybe more cautious models would just deflect. The example that always comes to mind for me is when someone asked it about the best time to start listening to Christmas music, and the answer was just, whenever the hell you want. I mean, that's a conversational tone you simply won't get from your standard enterprise-focused AI model.
Exactly. And that personality is actually controllable through two distinct modes.
Yeah.
You've got regular mode, which gives you straightforward answers. And then there's fun mode. Fun mode is the intentional setting designed to inject that humor, maybe some sarcasm, and that distinctive personality into the responses. It makes the interaction feel, well, livelier, even if it's occasionally a bit sharp. It's clearly a deliberate strategy to make the AI feel more engaging and less sterile.
Okay, so if you, the listener, want access to this real-time, visually capable, and potentially sarcastic assistant, access is tied directly to the X Premium subscription tiers, right? Grok is currently available for all X Premium subscribers. And just to quickly confirm those web pricing tiers we saw, basic starts are around $3 a month or $32 annually. The main gateway seems to be the premium tier, starting at $8 a month or $84 annually. And then there's a Premium Plus tier starting at $16 a month or $168 a year. So it's really packaged as utility within that existing X ecosystem.
Which naturally brings us to the big evaluation, the benchmark battle. Whenever a new model launches, especially one with this much fanfare, you really have to look at how it performs against the reigning champ, which, for many tasks, is still GPT-4. And xAI has actually provided pretty extensive head-to-head comparisons. They're moving beyond just general knowledge tests into these highly specific, complex reasoning benchmarks.
Okay, this is where we probably need to slow down a bit and really absorb the details. We can't just, rattle off a bunch of acronyms. Let's start with where Grok 1.5v shows clear superiority. What are those areas?
Absolutely. So Grok 1.5v demonstrates clear strengths in areas that demand precise technical and spatial understanding. First off, it really excels in mathematical reasoning. It scores higher on the MathVista benchmark. And this isn't just like simple arithmetic. This benchmark involves complex multi-step math problems that often require reading graphs or interpreting equations within the problem. Secondly, it dominates the AI 2D benchmark. Now, this one is specifically designed to test the interpretation and understanding of diagrams, which goes right back to its multimodal strength, not just seeing the diagram, but actually reasoning about it. And finally, as we kind of stressed earlier, it's the champion in the real-world QA benchmark. That really proves its strong grasp of physical spatial relationships within actual photos.
Okay, so if Grok is winning at math, diagrams, and real-world spatial stuff, that sounds like a potentially massive advantage for technical and industrial use cases, right?
It's definitely a targeted advantage, yes. Now let's look at where GPT-4 still seems to maintain an edge. The sources confirm that GPT-4 performs slightly better in overall multidisciplinary reasoning. That's measured by the MMMU benchmark, which stands for Massive Multidisciplinary Understanding. So this suggests that for more generalized academic or conceptual tasks covering a really wide range of fields, GPT-4 probably retains a small lead. Furthermore, GPT-4 performs marginally better in specific tasks like interpreting charts and visual data. That's the Chart QA benchmark. And also in processing documents and answering questions based strictly on text-heavy files, which is tested by DocVQA.
Okay, so let me see if I've got this right. If I'm trying to summarize, say, a 50-page legal brief, GPT-4 might still be the better bet. But if I'm trying to figure out the optimal placement of machinery in a warehouse based on a blueprint, Grok's spatial mastery probably takes over.
That's a perfect way to frame it, yes. And interestingly, for just simple text reading comprehension, measured by the TextVQA benchmark, The two models perform almost identically. So the competition now seems to be entirely in these specialized, nuanced reasoning domains, not so much in basic processing power anymore. Grok 1.5v is clearly positioning itself not as an overall generalist leader, but maybe as a specialized champion for those critical tasks involving visual and spatial context.
Right, it makes sense. Okay, moving briefly to the developer side, because for a lot of our listeners, API access is how they'd actually integrate these tools into their own projects. What are the basic underpinnings of Grok? What was it trained on?
Well, Grok 1 was initially trained on a pretty diverse range of internet text data, specifically stuff aggregated up to the third quarter of 2023. And this base knowledge was then augmented with various proprietary data sets, some of which were curated by human reviewers, before the model was iterated upon to create the 1.5 versions we're discussing.
So for developers who are maybe eager to try out those unique real-time capabilities, why might they choose Grok's API over, say, another model's API?
The primary reason I think a developer would choose Grok's API is precisely that unique real-time access to X data. If your application or service needs immediate insight, maybe sentiment analysis or trend spotting based on current public discussion, well, that connectivity is a massive advantage you just don't get elsewhere right now.
Okay, and how do they actually get started with that API access? Through something called Prompt ID.
Right. So first you have to go to x.ai, sign in using your X account, and then navigate to the profile settings. There you'll find a request access form. This application process requires you to basically detail your intended use case. Once you're approved, you get access to Prompt ID. And from there, you select API keys, create your key, and then define your access controls for integrating it into your application. It's fairly standard once you get access.
Got it. Okay, so we've covered the roadmap, the personality quirks, the access methods, and crucially, the performance benchmarks. I think the core takeaways for you listening are that Grok seems to be defined by really three key factors. First, that unique access to real-time X data. Second, a distinctive and sometimes rebellious personality managed through that fun mode. And third, a specialized technical superiority in real-world spatial and visual reasoning, making it potentially highly effective for things like diagram and schematic interpretation.
Yeah, and while that initial promise of finding the answer to life, the universe, and everything, well, that certainly remains ambitious, let's say. Grok's strategic focus on immediate relevance and its strong performance in practical visual understanding does suggest a clear, specialized utility. Feels like an AI designed more to solve problems in the world you can actually see and measure.
Exactly. That focus on practical, maybe less abstract application, that feels like the most crucial takeaway from this deep dive. So here's the final thought to consider. Given its specific benchmark wins, especially in interpreting diagrams and understanding spatial context where in your own field, whether that's engineering, logistics, planning, maybe even mapping, where could Grok's specialized focus on practical visual data make the biggest, most immediate difference for you right now? That really feels like the key question as these specialized AI tools continue to evolve and redefine the landscape.